Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because on a lot of the Africom official publications and official documents, it highlights the fact that they say that African countries are accepting Africom, and I think that's a little bit dubious. Yeah, and you touched upon it a bit on your answer to the last question, and I think, especially when we look at history, and I think the idea of having military bases, foreign military bases in African countries, impinges on their sovereignty a bit. So I was wondering if you could say, do you think Africom, the potentiality of Africom and American bases in African countries impinges on African countries' sovereignty?
Absolutely. We have a history in Africa. It goes back to the days of Lumumba in 1960, where Lumumba, visionary leader, was actually killed with complicity from the US and the UK. Yeah? I think you have had a series of visionary leaders killed or gotten rid of by pressure from US and by military pressure as well. And people installed, again, in the case of the Congo, Mobutu was installed and propped up, given military hardware and machinery and financing and training, really creating a machinery of repression. Countries like Liberia, where I'm from, you had Doe propped up as a friend of America, given more military hardware and equipment and training than all the governments from the establishment of the country in 1847 to 1980, when Doe came to power. All those governments combined, right? Doe got more military assistance than all those governments combined. And why? Because he was seen as doing the bidding of the U.S. What he was actually doing was building a machinery of repression that he unleashed against his own people with support of U.S. taxpayer dollars. I think it is critical to think about sovereignty questions when we think about U.S. military expansion, wherever it is in the world. And I think we have to hold up countries like Ecuador that are essentially saying no to the U.S. military expansion, pushing to close the U.S. military base there, understanding that what it's brought has been environmental destruction with unspent arsenal all strewn through the military bases. It has brought harm to women, particularly women who face sexual violence on and around these military bases. It has really not even brought jobs or roads or development. So all of the issues around public relations that are pushed forward, that actually a U.S. military base will help improve the condition of people's lives, those have actually not borne out in terms of the reality on the ground in these bases in parts of the world. And what has happened have been questions of sovereignty being undermined wherever it is, whether it's Okinawa in Japan or any of the bases where the U.S. currently is. I think it is critical, given the history of U.S. military and economic exploitation of Africa, for these questions of sovereignty to really dominate any discussion of U.S. military expansion on the continent.
Yeah, so I think we've talked